If you're making a webcomic, you're probably now wondering, where do I publish my webcomic? Where are my people who enjoy reading the exact type of work that I love to create? Hi, I'm Dion. I'm sharing my journey of webcomic creation as much as I can to help you, my fellow webcomic creator and reader, with some of the behind the scenes of making a webcomic. Today's video, you can see me working on page 3 of my own webcomic, Jim Reel Paranormal Investigator. You can read this page right now as it is live on my website. I will leave a link in the description below for you. But today's topic is one that came up in a question asked recently in the comments by the Black Horned. They asked, what sites would you recommend for uploading a webcomic? Thanks so much for the question. Now, I'm only going to talk about my most recent experiences of hosting a webcomic. The reason for that is I don't want to discourage anyone who has done all their research about where to host their work and have landed on one of the many options out there, only to then watch this video and have it create confusion for them about where to put their work, because the truth is that not one option fits all. Some people have different goals for their comic, different audiences, genres, subject matter, and so on. So I'm going to come at it from the point of view of making traditional looking handmade comics with either a science fiction / fantasy, horror, or action theme, with the possibility of turning this thing into a full-time career. The first and probably the biggest hosting platform I've used is Webtoon, or sometimes known as Line Webtoon. To publish a webcomic to their platform, you will first need to make an account with them, which is easy to do. Once you have an account, you can begin uploading your work to the platform. With each upload you make, your work becomes featured on a section known as Canvas, where a thumbnail you've made to market your webcomic will appear. If someone sees your webcomic's thumbnail and likes what they see, they click on it and can read your story. Now, if they like your story, they can then subscribe. The more you upload and the more consistently you upload, the more opportunities you create to have your work found on the Canvas homepage, and then the possibility to grow your audience. Webtoon does also offer the opportunity for creators to make money with their webcomic. Comics that reach a certain level of viewership or subscriber base can then receive a share of payments that come from a monthly pool of money earned by the publisher's ad revenue. But even if a creator hasn't reached these required levels, which I think are quite high, all creators on the platform can link a Patreon account to their Webtoon page, allowing creators to build a community and receive monetary support by offering exclusives to those that join their Patreon account. If you are unfamiliar with any of these sites so far, I'll leave links below where you can read their about pages to learn a little more. Now, my overall experience with Webtoon has been, well, let's just say it was okay for what you get. You see, I'm not a full-time webcomic creator. I make probably one page a week using the traditional printed format you'd see in a comic book, so my output compared to some of the other webcomics on there was not as big. Most webcomic strips like Garfield or XKCD type of strips with 3 panels then a gag would upload daily, and longer ongoing formats like Lore Olympus or True Beauty would sometimes upload anywhere between 20 to 30 panels for an installment per week. I just didn't have that kind of output. Also, Webtoon seemed to favor the scrolling panel-to-panel option. This is probably because a lot of their readers are reading the content through their mobile phone. If you look at the genres on Webtoon, it is quite broad, but I would say a majority of the popular comics on Webtoon, those that get the most amount of attention, are romance. And the style tends to lean more towards a manga style of artwork, which a majority of look great, but it's not really what I wanted to do. Now, that doesn't mean you won't find success on a platform like Webtoon with an action horror or fantasy sci-fi, fully hand-painted style in a traditional format. In fact, you probably would stand out from the crowd and get more attention. It's the getting that attention that is the key. So let's talk more about the attention as we look at the second webcomic hosting platform I've used, Tapas. I'd say Tapas is probably the second biggest platform for webcomics out there, and it works pretty much the same as Webtoon, or with the similar perks and pitfalls. Both sites are absolutely free for you to use. The only condition with both is that you will have to dedicate a lot of your time and energy marketing your webcomics in order to get the attention you will need to gain readers, increase your subscribers, and then possibly earn some money from the fruits of your labor. With thousands, and I mean thousands of creators uploading daily to these sites, your work can potentially fall through the cracks and never get seen. Now, if you're just doing this for a bit of fun, or as just an experiment to flex your illustration and writing muscles, and you're just doing it for the pure joy of creating something to entertain an audience, then I'd say Webtoon and Tapas are for you. They make it easy for you to host your work without any hassle or cost to you, the creator. But I'd bet that a majority of us webcomic creators are trying to make some sort of return for all the hard work we put into these things we call webcomics. Yes, they are a labor of love, but there is no shame in making a living out of what you love, right? So this brings us to our third option for webcomic publishing and hosting, the one I've enjoyed the most and I'd say I've had the most success at, publishing my own webcomic on my own website. Now at first this might seem like a difficult option and perhaps a costly one, but hear me out, and I'll try to explain why I think this is the way for comic creators to go and how they can thrive online with far more success than using these big hosting sites like Webtoon and Tapas. For a start, there is just you. On your own site, you're not competing with 50 other thumbnails of other creators' uploaded work. And you're not competing with the countless ads thrown all over the homepage of these sites trying to get readers' attention. Webtoon and Tapas will promote their top viewed comics. So if you're coming in fresh and new, you'll be starting at the bottom and working your way up the ladder to get noticed. If you're using your own site to host your comic, you can just make it all about your comic, nothing else. And that focuses the attention of the reader onto you and your work alone. You can eliminate all the flashing GIF images or pop-ups that draw the attention away from your work and make your webcomic the main focus. No distractions means better communication between your story and the reader. The other reason I really like the self-hosting option is the chance to really build a community. You know how in the back of your favorite comic book there is usually a letter to the editor column? I remember when Stan Lee used to leave a little written message at the back of The Amazing Spider-Man and would sign off with Excelsior each time. With your own site, you get the opportunity to speak with a dedicated group of fans who are coming to read just your work. You can create a community for your fans that allows you to offer a look behind the scenes, advanced page images, or share ideas, techniques, or art tips. You also have far more control over your content. If you're hosting your work on another company or person's site, there is always the possibility that the site could shut down or your work no longer meets their guidelines, forcing you to either change your style, writing, or artwork from your original vision. The possibility of losing your readers because you no longer can upload to these sites is greater, meaning that you can potentially lose a loyal following. Now that doesn't sound very fair creatively to me. Instead, your own site allows you to build a body of work that can't be affected by someone else's terms and conditions, and speaks closer to your overall vision for your story. And the last point I want to make as to why I think self-published work hosted on your own site is better for the creator is this: marketing. It sounds crazy, but if you're wanting your work to really stand out from the crowd on a site like Webtoon and Tapas, you're going to have to drive traffic to your page on those sites, which means you'll have to do your own marketing. They won't do it for you. They do already have a huge community of readers invested in reading webcomics, but Webtoons and Tapas aren't in the business of promoting your comic unless you're somehow bringing in enough readers already. So why not just do that for yourself? If you're going to be spending the time generating new traffic to these publishing platforms, you could actually spend that same amount of time and energy doing it for your own website. These sites basically work by bringing in as much traffic as possible to read the endless free content we create for them. Advertisers pay them for space on their site to take advantage of that traffic, and the creators are given a small percentage of the money made from advertising. Creators are putting in all the work but getting a small piece of that pie. Instead, market your own website and drive your own dedicated readers to your work. And then from there, you decide how you want to build a relationship with your readers. Go in deep and discuss your work with your audience. Offer them art tips, exclusive stories. Become the Stan Lee of your own work and leave them with a little Excelsior at the end of each week. When it's on your own terms, the possibilities are endless and the opportunities are too. Leave a comment if you know of any sites to publish your webcomics to help anyone who might be unsure of where to go, and what experiences have you had with getting your webcomic published online. Let's talk soon.